Hello and welcome back to Try Your Hand. Today we're going to be making some watermelon soap. Why don't we get started with the supplies? So for the supplies you will need a mold, some shea butter soap base, clear soap base, some watermelon fragrance oil, some red soap colorant, green soap colorant, a spray bottle of isopropyl alcohol, some poppy seeds. You will also need a glass container. I'm using this jar. You can use whatever. You will also need a cutting tool. You also need a stirring implement and a cutting board. So the first thing that you need to do is to take your white soap base and to split it into 3 equal pieces. This will be making the rind of your watermelon soap. And it needs 3 different colors: a dark green, a lighter green, and then a white. Once you have separated it into 3 equal pieces, you will then chop up one of those thirds into smaller pieces and put it in your glass container. So now that you've chopped everything up, we're going to then heat up our soap in the microwave to melt it. We're going to put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. And then we're going to stir to make sure that there are no lumps. If there are, you put it in the microwave for another 30 seconds. If there aren't, you can then take it off to your station again. So when you're heating this up, make sure that you have like a towel or a heat pad of some kind to protect your hands because the glass gets very, very hot. Once your soap is melted, you then can start to pour in the colorant and the scent. So I put in about 15 drops of the scent and about 4 or 5 drops of my green. Of course, you can put in more or less as much as you like. Just make sure that this part of the soap is going to be the darkest green that you have. Make sure that you mix everything really, really well, and then you can set your spoon aside and start to pour. So once you have everything mixed, you are ready to pour. When pouring, you will have enough soap for 3 bars of soap. With this first section, just pour it down and make sure you get all the different corners of your mold. And you want to fill the bottom of the mold maybe about an eighth of an inch or so on each section. After that, you will then take your spray bottle of alcohol and just spray the top of your soap just to break up any air bubbles and also to make the soap stick to each other as we layer our soap. You also want to make sure that the layers cure before you move on to the next step. So for this next section, you will take your other third of your white soap and you will chop that up like you did previously into smaller pieces and put it in your jar. It's okay if your jar is still dirty at this point with the colorant of this previous soap, because this next section will just be a lighter green to make the rind of our watermelon. Then you'll want to put that in the microwave and microwave it for 30 seconds at a time and stirring like you did with your previous batch of soap and until it's all melted and liquid. Now that everything is melted, you can then mix up, make sure that everything is liquid, and then you can add your scent and some more colorant if you'd like. So I put in maybe another 15 drops or so of the watermelon scent, and then I decided to put in a couple extra drops of my colorant just to make it a slightly more brighter green, and then I poured it on top of my previous soap once it's cured. Remember that you want to make sure that the previous layer is hardened before you pour your next section. So once you pour, you want to make sure that you're doing a zigzag motion or a circular motion when pouring, just to get it in every single crevice of your mold. This section you'll want maybe slightly smaller of a thickness than your previous section, but try to aim for about 1/8 of an inch. Again, you'll want to take your isopropyl alcohol and spray your recently poured soap just to get all the air bubbles out and to make the layer stick. Remember to let this layer cure, and then we're going to get ready for the white part of our watermelon rind. Again, we're going to take the rest of our white soap and we're going to cut it up into small pieces and put it in our glass container. This time you do want to clean your container because we do want to keep the whiteness of this soap to get that white portion of the watermelon rind. So then you will microwave it like we've done with the previous sections, and then we will start to add our scent. So now that our soap is melted, we can add our scent. So I'm putting in a couple more drops of the watermelon scent into the white soap and stirring. Then I'm going to pour that white soap on top of my previous layers. So for this section, you will want it to be slightly thinner than before. Make sure that you spread that white as you pour all over the mold so that you don't have any holes or anything like that. And then just pour it into your mold and then let it cure for the next section. Also, you'll want to clean your container again once you have finished with the white soap, because we're going to get ready to use the glycerin soap. So, like before, we're going to chop up our glycerin soap into smaller pieces, and we're going to then put it into our glass jar to melt. Of course, we're going to melt it just like we did with the previous soap, where we put it in the microwave for 30-second increments and stirring once we take it out until everything is liquid. Make sure that with this soap that you do in fact stir it, because as it's melting, sometimes you can't see the lumps that the soap still has that are unmelted. So just stir with your spoon just to make sure everything is in fact melted and there are no lumps. And then we can start with the colorant and the scent. So once everything is melted, you can then put in the scent and the colorant. So I put in about 10 drops of the watermelon scent, and I put in a couple of drops of the red that I have. And then I stirred. After that, I put in some poppy seeds. I kind of eyeballed it. You can try putting in maybe like a teaspoon and see how you like that. The poppy seeds are supposed to represent the seeds in the watermelon, and they're also like a good exfoliant as well, which is why we're putting it in our soap. As I stir in the poppy seeds, you do kind of want them to be floating inside of your soap. I think it would be best maybe if you leave it a little bit in your glass jar just to make sure that the poppy seeds are kind of being suspended in the soap, and then you can start to pour. You don't want it to thicken a lot, just a little bit. And then you can stir again, make sure that everything is suspended, and then you can start to pour. For this pouring, it is much easier than the previous ones because you're just pouring it all the way up to the very top. Once you have poured your soap all the way to the top of your mold, you can then take your isopropyl alcohol bottle and spray that just to make sure you get all the air bubbles out. And then you just set it off to the side to set, and then you can use your soap. So this is my soap after I've let it set for about 30 minutes or so. I was able to then take it out of my mold. So what I did, I just pulled the sides of the mold off of the soap, and then I was able to just push the soap right out of the mold, and then I have my bar of soap. So it should be just ready to use right there. If you want, you can wrap it in like parchment paper or wax paper if you're not quite ready to use some of this soap. But there you go. That's your watermelon soap. So I hope you guys had fun with this project. We will be doing another project in summer. Our next project is going to be felting. So if you'd like to do that, you can sign up on our website. I will have the links down in the description below. Also, if you want to show us your project, you can tag us on our social media. So we have an Instagram and a Facebook, all the links for those are going to be down in the description. All right, I hope you guys had fun. We'll see you next time.